All right. Hey, everybody. Todd Mitchell here. Welcome back to Game Dev Breakdown. Today, we're talking to Jason Lee from Pixelmatic, who is a game industry veteran of many years. He is working on the Infinite Fleet game that's coming up from Pixelmatic, and we got to talk about all kinds of cool things. So I know you're going to enjoy this. Sit back, relax, and enjoy my chat with Jason.
Good evening, fans. Tim Kitzrow here, the voice of NBA Jam, and you're listening to the Game Dev Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by CodeWritePlay.com. Whoa, boom shakalaka.
My mom gave birth in 1985. I was bluer than a Pac-Man ghost, barely alive. In the Cold War, my only blanket was Tetris. I played Rampart with Reagan, rampaged the world for breakfast. The laundromat was my sanctuary, the arcade was my church. I thought I was
Are you in Vancouver, is that right?
Yeah, Vancouver, Canada. Yeah.
Very nice. My wife and I actually just visited Vancouver in, I think it was last September or October, and did the super touristy thing where we, cruised up to Alaska. But I loved it. Right. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. Just very expensive to live, but yeah.
I kind of wondered about that. I didn't really know.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's along the lines of how we'll sort of dive in. For listeners who aren't yet familiar with you, give me a little bit of background, who you are, what you've done, and what you're doing now.
Yeah. My name is Jason Lee. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Pixelmatic. First, let's talk. Like Pixelmatic's a game development studio with a main studio based in Shanghai, but with distributed teams like all around the world. The team is really made up of like industry veterans that have like AAA studio that come from AAA studios like Relic, Ubisoft, BioWare, and have really worked on like major titles like Homeworld, EVE Online, Age of Empires, Anthem, Company of Heroes. Before joining Pixelmatic, I worked in the game development industry for about 13, 14 years. I lost track, but around there. And on franchises like Company of Heroes, Age of Empires, and a whole slew of different games that really never been released. For people that have worked in game development in the industry, they sort of like there are a lot of like titles that people work on that never really end up getting released.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. Before joining Pixelmatic to work on Infinite Fleet, I was working on the Age of Empires 4 sequel. It's a huge project being developed by Relic Entertainment and published by Microsoft, taking all the things really fans love about Age of Empires and allowing them to experience it again as if it was developed brand new in 2020 or not, I guess 2021, whenever it gets released.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. At Pixelmatic, I'm the chief creative, but that's like fancy title. Like I wear a lot of hats. There's a lot of creative direction, game direction related things I'm involved in. Sometimes I'm a QA tester. Sometimes I'm a producer. Just really, it's a big difference in working from a big company to a smaller indie-like company where you just have to do what you need to do to sort of push the feature ahead. It's more about the feature than what it is that you do. So yeah.
So you've done quite a bit of focus in your career in RTS games, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's correct.
Was that kind of by design or by fortune?
It was by fortune. How I got into Relic originally because of my love for StarCraft and Warcraft, like strategy games. But it doesn't mean that that's the only type of games I enjoy playing. It's just I was very good at strategy games. It was very early on during the development of Company of Heroes when they were sort of recruiting and building a balanced team. So that's sort of how I got my foot in the door in the game development at Relic because I was able to play strategy games and understand strategy games fairly well. And Relic being a very strategy game focused company, I ended up sort of working on strategy games most of the time. There were other games that I was involved in that I worked on that were not strategy, but they never really sort of ended up seeing the light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Relic was tied to Warhammer also, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
I'm a fan of that. I've played a few of Relic's things, but the Warhammer thing really struck me because I'm not even really a Warhammer guy. Like, I like the idea of it. I've just never had an opportunity to dive real far in, but their games are really great.
Yeah. And with what Relic focused on with Warhammer was like their franchise Dawn War, which is like the strategy game, how it's translated in strategy. But they also did an action game called Space Marine, which you really play the role of what it's like to be a Space Marine in that universe. Yeah, which was pretty cool.
Very cool. So talking about the present, you're with Pixelmatic. First of all, how is Pixelmatic doing? I mean, we have a global pandemic going on. Are you guys okay? Is development off track? I mean, how are things going?
No, it hasn't phased us at all. Like we were already sort of our team was already distributed around the world. We were already working remotely even before the whole pandemic. So for us, it wasn't much of a transition at all. It was just like work as usual.
Yeah, and
things are just flowing. So if anything, actually, it's been easier for us to somewhat recruit because like more people are sort of looking for remote work. They sort of understood and are set up at home to better sort of work remote now. So it's been easier to sort of find people around the world in that sense.
Yeah. See, I'm a contractor myself, and I do tons of work from home. And while I hate what's going on, I do like kind of the mind shift that you guys were doing this before, but a lot of studios are thinking about ways they can implement this for the first time. And like I said, I'm from the St. Louis area. There's not a booming game industry market here, but I think some people in this area are starting to get more opportunity for the first time. It's been hard for them previously, and now it's sort of opening up a little bit. So maybe that's something positive we can take forward with us,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think like for us, one of the big things that I sort of learned after joining Pixelmatic with the whole remote work situation is that, just being able to recruit like a whole like the talent that you want from all around the world, from wherever you want. It just gave us a lot of flexibility than needing to be tied to a specific region, right?
So home office for you guys is in Shanghai.
Yes.
Is it sort of advantageous for you guys to be part of a company based in China that publishes outward rather than companies that have to try to work the other way around and publish from outside into the Chinese gamer market? Or is it just a different set of problems?
Yeah, like that I'm not too sure about. I think so. I don't think that was ever, we considered that too heavily when it was set up that way at first. The company was founded in 2011, and the CEO at that time was sort of in Shanghai and in China. So he set up the company there. I'm not sure, and I wasn't part of Pixelmatic at that time, so I wasn't sure if sort of he thought of all that when he sort of set that up. That is definitely something interesting to think about.
Right. Yeah. My reason for asking was I was sort of looking over the website, and I noticed it mentioned that, the company kind of acts as a publisher for companies looking to publish in China. And I thought, oh, well, since you're there, right, it makes a lot of sense. So
Right. Actually, it's the publishing part of Pix. It's something that we're actually taking more seriously. With the way we sort of fundraise for not just Infinite Fleet, but for other games that we may take on in the future. And the publishing part of our company is called Exordium. And our fundraising is actually through equity shares of the Exordium publishing equity. So anything in terms like that in terms of profits that's generated for Exordium is what the investors have access to when they buy shares of Exo tokens.
That's an interesting part of the way Infinite Fleet is set up, so we may as well jump into that. Infinite Fleet is I guess it's safe to say, your main big event coming up for the company.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So this is basically kind of a hybrid RTS. I mean, I'll let you do the description because it's kind of unique.
Yeah, so it's a big blockbuster game we're working on. It's a new MMO sci-fi strategy game where the fantasy is like the player really plays as a commander in the United Soul Federation. And they've been given command over a fleet of these big, gigantic battle fortresses. And that they can customize and create that perfect synergistic fleet, sort of all the while like defending humanity alongside many other commanders in this sort of MMO world. And our in-game currency, our in-game economy, just like our narrative, which is player-driven, we want our economy to also be very player-driven through the use of our in-game currency called INF currency.
And this is technically going to be a form of cryptocurrency that the game uses, is that right?
Yeah, but then technically it's a cryptocurrency only when players decide to take this currency out of the game. So what's unique about our game is that this currency is no different than any in-game currency, like what gold is to WoW, World of Warcraft.
Sure.
Until the moment that players decide to take this currency out, then it becomes a cryptocurrency.
I see.
Yeah.
I hear collaboration. I hear massively online. Is there sort of a Destiny flavor to this in addition to sort of the strategic elements, that kind of thing?
Yeah, like the strategy part of the game is in how players use their fleets and engage in combat. So how I like to talk about it is it's like the game is less about, it's mostly about strategy and decisions and less about like actions per minute. Yeah. Almost like playing chess in a way. Not like, turbo chess or fast chess, but, trying to make the right decisions, within a certain given period of time. So that's the strategy. And then MMO aspect of things is you get to play with many of your friends all around the world, like all sorts of different people. And you sort of accomplish these big feats and overcome big events and obstacles by collaborating and working together.
You guys have a bunch of great content on YouTube about the upcoming game. Something interesting I heard you say previously was that some of the gameplay is going to be it's going to have multiple viewpoints, so you can have more of a strategic view like you might see in other strategy games. And then also at low level, you can just see this sort of unit level, that kind of thing. So what can you tell me about that?
Yeah, we just felt we weren't doing the game justice if we were going to show the game like every other strategy game that tends to show off the game from a top-down God view camera. If we were to just flatten the entire space in that way, right? Mm-hmm. The fantasy about being in space is that it's this 3D plane where there's just these massive things that sort of float, like planets and stars and gas clouds and all sorts of stuff, and we didn't want to lose that. Otherwise, why are you in space? Why not just why not just on a planet, right? So that's one of the reasons why we have the action camera. But how we sort of translate that in combat is, it's very simple to sort of imagine. Anybody that's played sports games have sort of already experienced this, but imagine playing football games, right? When you play like Madden, right? You start with that whole sort of strategic view of your teams and you're setting plays. And once you make that pass, to the running back or whoever catches the ball is running with it. Then you have that sort of third person view, right? Where you're just running through and plowing people through to get to that goal line, right? And that's really it. Like it's sort of once the strategic view is really good for making plays and decisions that sort of unfold over a period of time, where the moment-to-moment actions and abilities that are executed per each individual ships are best done and it feels a lot better and more visceral when it's done from a third-person action camera.
And we're still in development on the game, or where are we on the roadmap here?
Yes. We're very close to like a closed alpha, a very early alpha, and it's a very it's at a very early phase in development, and we're still a bit far out before we reach beta. Probably would be closer to next year. That's when we'll have most of the core features in, and games a lot more polished at that time. Yeah.
So I totally understand the indie element of this, that where like everyone's doing whatever is needed. On an ideal day where there's not a lot going on for you, like what is the core role that you do on the team?
I'm involved very heavily on sort of the motivation systems and the because I don't like to sort of just sit around. Like I manage when I need to, but mostly like I like to get my hands dirty. So I'm involved in a lot of we're working with our economy designer to sort of figure out where to trigger certain motivations and interesting engagement metrics here and there, sort of to just create an interesting flow in the game. And the economy is like one of the biggest drivers for it, right? So I'm just always paying attention to that and making sure all the features and systems in the game are sort of arranged in a way where it flows with everything there, and not have one system feel like it's playing independently to everything else.
Right. To my ear, it sounds a little bit reminiscent of some of the cool features that Elite Dangerous has in terms of community goals and stuff. Am I close?
Yeah, there's actually a lot. It's like there's Elite Dangerous is definitely something we did definitely talk about a lot. I think another one is Star Citizen, EVE Online. Everything in that sort of realm.
You guys are also doing a token offering to raise funding for development. So, tell me a little bit about how that worked. I know some of it's done.
Right. Yeah. So we just finished our first round of fundraising. It was more private, but it went out. We closed it really quickly. I think like overnight. And we oversold. Our goal was like 3 million. I think we hit like 3.1 or 2, something like that. And that was on Bank to the Future. And we have another one coming up on Stalker.io, and that will be available to the public. The unique thing about our fundraising model is that unlike Kickstarters, where you sort of donate money right to the developers, in our case you actually own equity. You become the investors, right? When we do well, we profit. So do our investors, right? Because there's a kickback, 20% of profits generated.
Nice. So
it's so much more valuable, and there's just so much more value in sort of when you're sort of getting involved at this stage compared to like something as if you were to get involved in a Kickstarter where you just own some digital items that I don't know, like it might be valuable to you in the game or it might not, but eventually like if the game's done, it's done, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's unique. There's so much, it's just so much more value to the players that get involved. And if people do want to get involved in this, I recommend they look. Well, first of all, they should go check out our website at www.infinitefleet.com. Because there's a lot of cool information there, the lore of the game. There's a lot of, like art. You can find all that stuff there. But also, create a account at stalker.io because you'll get the latest updates and when it's going to be available.
I saw it suggested somewhere that this is the first game of its type in terms of the way it was funded this way. Is that right?
Right. That's right. Yeah. The first game that's ever being funded using an STO model.
That may have been why when I first heard this, I thought, that can't be what it sounds like. And I think I was close. I'm not exactly a crypto genius or anything, but I've learned a little bit here and there. But it does sound very interesting. I was kind of skeptical at first, but the more I've read about it, the more it kind of makes sense to me. Especially, obviously it'll be of a ton of interest to a lot of people to see how this goes.
Right.
But the pressure must also be a little bit through the roof, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of interest, especially in the people in the cryptocurrency space, people, just investors in general, in that way. But yeah, I think what this does, though, is sort of allows your everyday people to sort of get involved, really, in games and being able to invest in game companies, or in our case, like our publishing, which is actually more valuable than just investing in a game alone, because the value of what they're investing in is more than just Infinite Fleet alone. It's any other future titles and projects that Exordium Publishing itself takes on. So.
Yeah, it is kind of neat in the sense that if I'm understanding it right, it basically opens up an opportunity to not only, have equity in the project, but also to be able to sort of trade it, liquidate, in much more of a hurry than you would really be able to any other way. And it's not like the average person can just get into investing in games traditionally overnight,
Right, exactly.
Obviously, people should know what they're doing, of course, but otherwise it cuts out a lot of, not even cutting out red tape. You just wouldn't really be able to do it in traditional circumstances. But there must also be a lot of regulatory hoops to jump through for this as well, though, right?
Yeah. We have to go through all those sort of regulatory things with the this is something actually that our chief operating officer, like Chris, deals with all the time, trying to make sure, all the, he deals with all the lawyers and all the regulatory bodies and stuff to make sure, this is, it's all legal, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
Because, everybody's got, it seems to me that everyone has a different set of rules and regulations. And I think here in the US, sometimes it's even right down to the state has different rules about, I don't know if it's just transactions or who can do what or what can be offered, but it seems like there's a lot to it.
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk about the show's newest sponsor, and that is AppFigures. AppFigures is all about giving game makers the tools they need to get more downloads and revenue. You may already know them for analytics and App Store optimization. Now, AppFigures can help you track competitors from how many downloads they're getting, how much money they're making, to their audience demographics, and even which SDKs they use. Their competitor intelligence gives you great context. Say a competitor adds a new feature or they were mentioned in the news. With AppFigures, you can see if that brought in more downloads. Got a good idea for an app or a game? With AppFigures, you can figure out how big the market is and how much money you could be making with it. And that's just scratching the surface. Whether you're growing your app or building a new one, AppFigures has the tools you need to reduce risk and get more downloads. You don't need a large budget or a data science degree. AppFigures has made it affordable and simple. On top of tools, AppFigures also provides a lot of guides and tutorials to take you step by step through gaining more visibility with ASO and increasing your revenue by learning from your competitors. Head to appfigures.com/on/GameDevBreakdown to try AppFigures for free. If you like it, use our special code GDB3030 to get 30% off for the next 3 months. Again, that's GDB3030 to get 30% off for 3 months. This is a great way to support the show and to get the power of AppFigures. We appreciate them as sponsors. obviously a lot of big heavy hitters in cryptocurrency have, it seems to me they've probably been waiting to watch something like this for a long time, because on the indie side and as a developer and everything, we listen to people around the industry, and we do hear a lot of blockchain's the future, cryptocurrency is the future, blah, 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 and we're all behind and we're not moving on it. But from my seat as a small indie, I go like, how would I even get started? Like, what would I even do,
Yeah. I mean, it depends. The whole topic of it's so I think what we're trying to do with how we raise money is definitely unique and different. And I really think this is how a lot of the game companies will sort of operate and approach the way they sort of fund projects and stuff in the future. But as it comes to like when we're talking about like blockchain, and if we're talking about like blockchain and gaming, I think in some ways that is limited. I think I feel like the whole blockchain concept is sort of being oversold in terms of how it's going to change the whole gaming sort of platform, because at the end of the day, like this is me coming from sort of a gamer, like traditional gamer, and it's like at the end of the day, like gaming it's all about the sort of experience that you're trying to provide to the player, right? The amazing experience that the ability to have them get lost in your universe or your game that you're trying to create. And it's at the end of the day, you have to ask like, what can blockchain do for that, right? I mean, it's blockchain is actually not a very complicated technology. It's just really a ledger that's very good at keeping track of things, and like that's why it's used so well in the finance aspect of things.
Right.
But in the in terms of how it's going to change the gameplay experience, it's sort of somewhat limited. And I think in the blockchain gaming space, people tend to sort of over market the idea of like ownership of things.
Right.
Really selling. You tend to see like a majority of the most popular blockchain games out there are games that were like crypto collectible games, right? Where they're selling the idea that you get to like fully own something. But how much does that really matter? Like if you own, let's say a certain pillar or a certain item in a game, do you really own that item if you don't own the game? Right.
Right. Yeah.
Like if the game goes down, that item means nothing, right? So it's sort of like they sort of over market these things in terms of how valuable it might be, and I think a lot of players are sort of buying into the marketing scheme. But yeah, from where I see it, it's just the real value I think is really. Or at least I haven't seen it yet in how blockchain can really change sort of, I guess, gaming and gaming experiences, how it can deliver new sort of gaming experiences.
I think I agree with that. I think it's going to be an interesting element in certain situations, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to turn gaming upside down. But that's part of something I feel like you guys have right from what I've seen, because big AAA hitters from all over the place, and it seems to me that you understand this has to go experience first, and if this game isn't good, you've got a whole lot of nothing on your hands,
Yeah. So the way we're executing things is our game is all about empowering the player, right? Right from all the way down from the story to how the economy works. We want the players to really drive how they want to play our game, right? It does make us a bit nervous.
Yeah.
Because it means that we don't have control. And this is sort of what, like, something that a smaller studio like us or a startup company like us can really experiment with. A bigger company likes to have control and understand the outcomes of where their game is headed. Whereas for us, we can take more of these kind of risks. But yeah, like, and that's why we have this sort of, we want to use this cryptocurrency, because we want to give the player flexibility in, like, when they take this token out of the game, what can they do, right? That, like, there's a lot of things that can sort of come out of that. Like, It not only it could provide security, but it provides portability. They can use it to sort of trade that currency and maybe gift it to a friend that they want. Or who knows, there might be like a third party service that gets developed around MMO. Like it happens all the time with MMOs, right?
I was going to say, I'm sure that's on the way.
Yeah. And then what we're doing is just creating sort of an environment for that kind of stuff to flourish, right? We're not going to try to control it or sort of dictate how it will be. That's up to the players and how they want to enjoy and play our game. We just want to sort of create sort of the fuel thing that can sort of ignite for that to happen.
Do you feel like there's a possibility of in the future extending this currency to like maybe more of your games?
Yeah. I mean, that's the ultimate dream for, future games that we publish through Exordium, to where we find a way where this currency can also work in those games as well. Yeah.
Nice. I guess I hadn't even really thought of this. Are we talking like PC exclusive? Would this hit consoles? What's going to happen?
Yeah, right now it is PC exclusive, but the controls, I mean, it's really the matter of controls and how players interact with the game, whether it can be accessible through the console or even mobile, right? There is a mobile component to our game. They can play a portion of the game through mobile.
Nice.
But ultimately, we would like it definitely on the console and also like fully on the mobile. So when we're thinking about control schemes, we are taking all that into consideration in the future. If we decide to sort of add these different platforms, can we? Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of opportunity to do really cool stuff there. So I guess there is still a lot of pressure to get the economy aspect of this game right and very balanced and very correct, like right out of the gate, right? I mean, is there room for new players to come in and like earn this currency from scratch? I mean, without putting, money in explicitly on buying any upfront or whatever?
Yeah. The cool thing about the INF currency is that you don't buy it. You just earn it by playing the game. You earn it absolutely free. So anytime if the player participates in one of our big story changing events, and depending on what they did, it's just all effort, like things that they did and what they did to participate. They basically get a reward, and that's the INF currency, a portion of what they contributed to that outcome, right?
Sure.
So, yeah, it's just like the more they sort of play and then the more they participate in these social events and social things that happen in the game, the more currency that they earn.
Nice. So, I mean, this is all new and some of this is a little bit Wild Westy on the way in, but is it possible, or are you talking about the possibility that there may have to be some kind of regulations that extend to the in-game currency? I mean, obviously the actual investment currency is going to go through its own processes, but do you think maybe that'll extend to the in-game stuff as well?
Regulations for the in-game currency? I don't think no, because it's only uses in the game, at least for now. Like how it might be used in the future is something that we can't really predict, but the design of it is for it to be used as a medium of trade for just like gold or any other in-game currency for items that are in the game. So, yeah.
It's a stretch. I mean, right. But that's part of the fun of this kind of project is sort of thinking about, what the future might hold. I'm sure you guys do that all the time. Yeah.
It's more like maybe in the future, but yeah, I mean, those bridges, I think when we get closer to things where like, oh, is this okay? Then, we'll deal with that at that time. I think right now everybody is they have their hands full in trying to, just make Infinite Fleet the most amazing game possible. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the cool thing here is that you've got an awesome roadmap laid out. You've got a game that everyone's excited about, and it sounds like you probably don't have many concerns about funding development at this point because you've already brought in everything you're looking for, at least for the time being. You guys have a great, competent team on your hands, but you don't hear too much about teams like this having all the funding they need. It's always like, we don't know how we're going to do it, but I think this was from the Canadian Game Devs interview where you sort of believe in a structure, sort of tiered approach to game development based on the funding you're able to raise. And I thought that was something interesting that indies could take away from this is a lot of indies think you either have to work completely for free or go through, one round of crowdfunding, but like, the concept of sort of breaking up your game into levels according to what you can develop with what amount of funding seemed really smart to me. So, I mean, what can you tell me about that mindset?
Yeah, so that's one of the big adjustments, I think, and learnings that I took away, like right from the get-go when I left, a bigger studio like Relic, where they get like, okay, here's, $15 million to make a game, and
right.
You plan the perfect game around understanding what can you do, or, what are all these fancy shiny toys I can have, with all this money. To when you have like certain when you can only have access to certain amounts of money at different periods of time, right? Which is like the situation that we have now at Pixelmatic. Mm-hmm. So it's at any time you have to sort of build a game as if that is the target, like as if it like we know that we will probably be able to get more than that, but still being responsible, you have to see the game as what is our game if it was like a $2 million game, what is our game if it was a $5 million game. Like what are the features in which, like, what are the must-haves? What are the core things that make Infinite Fleet? And then what are the next tier things that make it a little bit better? And, the thing that gives it a bit more depth. And you start to sort of pile that on, almost like layering a cake, right? And that's sort of how we develop games. So when we release, and our alpha is sort of on that mentality too. Like it's at a point where a part of our core features in, but not everything. And we're building it in phases as we get alpha players in there and trying it. They'll be giving us feedback. So we're really building this game also on that note, like building it with players as they sort of interact with things. And give us feedback from a very early phase in the alpha where we haven't even got all the core elements of the game in there. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the big thing when it comes to like layering, building games in layers, is that you really just focus. I think it's like at the end of the day, you just focus on what makes your game your game. What is that core set of interactions that make that? And then what are the next things that sort of add a bit spice, take it to the next level, and really being hard in terms of, because as the creative person that's creating the game, you always want to add that extra level of things. But you just really be hard on yourself to make that really core decision on, what are the minimum things that if you had to say that you need for your game to be your game, right?
So this sounds to me like you are leaving a decent amount of room for players to shape the game as they start to interact with it and as you move into alpha and beta and everything. Is that something that you picture happening in a big way, or where's going to be the line that you go either, well, this is our experience, or like, yeah, we got room to do that?
Well, the thing is, so the one advantage of working, I mean, not one, but, one of the great, I guess the takeaways that I had working so closely with Microsoft is sort of their ability to sort of draw and understand feedback, like UX related things. They have a very intricate, like a very advanced team with like all sorts of like professors and stuff. And the way they sort of gather player feedback and understand how to take action from that. like majority of the time when players give feedback, it doesn't like it's not always like you shouldn't take every word for word directly. Like you have to understand why are they saying what they're saying, right? And then take the essence of that and then reflect it in your original game direction of the game. And is there something within were you forgetting about that experience that the players are not feeling, or is there something missing there that is part of your system that they're not getting? Is there something that's being lost in translation with one of the systems, right? So you have to sort of evaluate that in that way. It's not as simple as like, players really hate the system, you just trash it and then go a different direction. It's more like, why do they hate it?
Right.
Like it's just asking those deep questions. Maybe there are just a few tweaks that you can make, and all of a sudden like, oh yeah, this actually works well. Or there's a feature, because it's alpha, maybe there's a feature that was planned that hasn't been in there yet, that they're not getting the complete experience, right? Yeah. So but I mean, at the end of the day, if it comes to the point where something is just not working, obviously we we have to make big changes and make sure. I mean, if there's things like that that we realize we really screwed up, we need to go in a different direction with this one area. That's something that we're ready to do.
Nice. And this got me thinking about a side of design that I haven't had to play with as much as some people with more experience have, and that is basically the design of in-game economies. And that's something you've at least worked around a lot now. What goes into good economy design? I mean, what are the things that you have to pay attention to?
I mean, I think, with economy, it's really just that it flows. It's not. I think that's the most important thing with the economy, and the economy itself becomes stronger when the sort of, I guess, in World of Warcraft case, it's gold. In our case, it's INF tokens. That the system is there where it's sort of in the hands of most of your player base, like as many of your different players in your player base as possible. And, it's not there to sort of reward and then balloon to a specific group of people more than others. Obviously, there are farmers, and, farmers work for it and they build it. But at the end of the day, if they're willing to put in the work for it, the work has to be there for them to earn it. Something like that. I think that's fair. But if there are economy elements of the economy where, at the highest level where, all you need to do is where majority of that sort of wealth is sort of locked into the highest group, because they can do the highest content, the most difficult things, so they're earning more. I think that ends up generating issues, right? Unless the things that they dump their sort of currency on is sort of equivalent to that value that they earn, right? You see that in a lot of games, right? With even in WoW, like you see that with game where when they more expensive armor costs a lot more to repair. When they're a higher level character, when they die, they lose more. I guess it's a higher repair cost for a lot of things. So it's like creating sort of that balance of where they're earning to dump, and it just has to feel equal just across the string, whether they're it's in the end game or it's in the early stages of the game, because we need to have sort of that sort of flow of the currency that exists throughout the economy for all players, and that just creates for a healthier economy.
In your opinion, who's doing this really well in the industry right now? I mean, is it the guys who've been doing it the longest, or are there standouts?
Well, I mean, the thing is, game economies, Like from the MMOs that I've tried, like they I would say like there's no specific system that they put in there where it's a sort of automatically handles an economy like this. What they usually tend to do is um, when a certain currency is getting sort of too inflated, they introduce a brand new currency, right?
Mhm.
Like you see that in WoW and tokens and creating new currency. Every time there's an expansion, there's a new token for something. There's a new currency for a new content, and like that give for like daily quests and stuff like that. And that's to sort of combat inflation that, because it's just so easy for you to sort of accrue, especially when you're at a higher level, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't think there's one game specifically because it's very hard to create and even predict how players are going to sort of interact with your game in the end game, in the long term of things. If your game is a short term game, then it's easier to predict. But trying to predict with all the new content and new experiences you're going to add to your game, like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line, and then all of a sudden how that's going to affect the economy, that's really, really hard to predict. And it limits the choices in which, in sort of the content that you can add to your game as well, if you're so worried about that. So I think that's why a lot of the game companies tend to sort of take the easier way out and just introduce new currency because that's a quick hack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something I was going to ask because it is obviously difficult and nobody has a crystal ball. But when you're at that scale and especially when you have a long history already and just a giant player base, I mean, when something takes a turn you didn't expect, and it's not that I call that a mistake, it's just something that they didn't predict. What can you even do without being too obvious or too unfair? I mean, that seems like a difficult thing to manage.
Yeah, I think the thing is though, like for us at least, we have control over certain levers in how we how the INF currency is distributed. So like it's only distributed. It's not an automatic. Hey, kill X amount of these things, and then you get INF currency. There are very specific big events that happen, and you have to participate in that. And when you do that, then that's when you earn the currency, right? Mm-hmm. And also, the currency itself is it's not unlimited like gold. I mean, World of Warcraft gold. There's a limit in total that will ever exist in the Infinite Fleet universe. So I don't know exactly when, maybe in 10 years or maybe in 20 years, we'll get to a point where that currency maybe it's no longer distributed anymore. Not sure at this point exactly how that's going to work, but it's interesting to sort of what we want to try to accomplish to do is like find a way where we create an economy where that sort of currency just flows through in the game, where players are trading that currency for services and digital items in the game to each other, where they're constantly earning from each other, and it's just this economy that sort of grows in itself. But that's sort of a long-term result. And so in that way, like that's how we plan to sort of fight inflation in our game, because there won't be this. If anything, the value of what INF currency is in our game will constantly go up in the long run, just because of the limited value of things. It works in the same way that, like Bitcoin works.
Yeah. So in wrapping up, I saw you say something very interesting in one of your interviews, that designers could benefit from learning more psychology. Tell me about why you said that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe games are all about experiences, and I think you need to understand social dynamics and some psychology if you want to understand how to craft experiences for players, right? Um, like in a sense, like I mean, it's actually already being used in some way good, in some way bad, right? In a monetization way, some publishers like what loot boxes do and stuff. It's not the most good thing, right?
Right.
The way that sort of psychology is used, but I kind of want to let's talk about the psychology around loot boxes actually, because that's very interesting, right? Because the thing is, when it's used in that way for monetization, it's considered not so good because it adds this element of randomness for after you sort of you hook the players in and have them sort of immersed and enjoying your games, and they sort of it's there psychologically so that they open it's easier for them to open their wallet, right? And usually these loot boxes are placed and introduced to the players at just that time when they do the math and science and all that, and we're like, okay, this is the perfect time where players are actually engaged in the game the most, right? So let's introduce the loot box to them, and they're most likely going to open their wallet, right?
Yeah.
So that's the psychology when it's used in a monetization way. But that psychology and that system has been used in games for a long time, even before how it's been used in loot boxes and monetization, right? Even like when you I keep using World of Warcraft as an example because I just figured that's a game that we both know.
Sure,
it's very popular to everybody. Yeah. But in World of Warcraft, when you enter a zone and then there are like these random bosses that sort of pop up at random intervals, that's no different than a loot box. Because you kill them, you might get an item, right? But you don't know exactly what time they're going to pop up. It's that sort of variable element that draws engagement, right? And it's sort of the reason why psychology is very important to game design and games as a designer is that you have to understand, how and what are the levers that you can control and to draw engagement at the right time. So the players that are experiencing and playing your game and experiencing your game design can be engaged at that specific moment, or can be nervous. You can control them in a way where they're sort of nervous and scared depending on how you lay out your levels and the sort of sound effects that you can add at different intervals. Those are also part of psychology as well, like they're how you create your levels. Mm-hmm. So the more you understand psychology, the more control you have in sort of the kind of experiences that you can sort of have the players experience in your game. So it's a powerful thing to know as a game designer, because if you it really controls the outcome.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And like you said, since loot boxes came up, this is something that's already being discussed quite a bit from people outside the industry. There are probably pretty fair concerns about, are they intentionally using psychological elements to manipulate people on their spending and things like that. So we may as well get to a point where we're using it to make a more positive game experience itself, right? Just even on just the design side, why not understand those elements and use it to do something good,
Yeah. And the thing is, it's been used that way for a long time. It's just most recently actually just being taken and being used as in the loot box scheme of things. I mean, it's also already been used in a loot box game even before loot boxes were a thing. In the game scheme of things, like where you would get rewarded a loot box. It's not something you pay for, but you would get it's as an engagement mechanic. You get rewarded a loot box, and loot box will reward you an item, right? And something like that is generally not received in a negative way by players. It's only really when they have to pay for a loot box, right? Because it's like the whole monetary, commitment of transaction, you want some level of guarantee that if you pay for something that, that you're going to get something back in return. But with the loot box, it's more like you have a chance to get something back in return, or you have a 1 in 4. So if you want to do the math, then you have to really think that at the most you're going to spend, in the worst luck scenario, you'll spend this much. In the best case, if you're lucky, you might get it for cheaper.
Yeah.
So I just don't think. I think that's a big reason why monetization with loot boxes is received negatively. It just provides sort of that. It feels predatory, right? In that way, you're exploiting players when they're and like you said, like exploiting psychology in a way where it's even like arranged at that perfect moment when they're engaged the most in your game, and it's just arranged where the loot box is just magically available at that time, right?
Yeah.
Where they're most likely to pay for it. Yeah.
Well, good clarification. So before we go, let people know where they can find you, the project, and when they'll see something next.
Yeah. So like to learn more about the project, best place to go, like www.infinitefleet.com. A whole slew of information there, from amazing concept art, trailers, and lore write-ups. Also linked to our Discord channel is also available in there. Let's see. Next, I think right now, like our next goal is really alpha, where we're heading towards alpha. No looking back, because it's our target for when we're going to do our first initial closed alpha. Our target was at the end of this year. So it just leaves us with actually probably like about 3 weeks with left, along with some testing time. So not a lot of time left. So that's the big thing. And if anyone wants to participate, they should. Alphas will be very exciting. There will be a few events that take place. You get to really help shape Infinite Fleet and how it gets sort of designed and built through your feedback as you participate. You can do that by either, like through the website, buying a ship on the store. Or best place, why not just hold some equity? Go to stalker.io and then, invest, buy some Exordium. That way, it's better than just buying a ship. You actually get equity in the company, and you get to celebrate our wins along with us, right?
Well, it's fascinating, and we'll be very interested to see how things shake out. And I'd love to talk to you again after the game's out there and we can play it and see. So thank you for this. This has been great.
Great. Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. One more big thanks to Jason Lee. Check out infinitefleet.com. Check out their YouTube channel is something I recommend. They have a lot of cool videos about development, how the technology works, and you can learn all sorts of cool stuff that way. So if you enjoy Game Dev Breakdown, I would love for you to subscribe anywhere. Check out show notes at coderightplay.com. You'll see Jason's links there as well. We also have a Discord server. We are also active on social media. Coderight Play on Twitter, Game Dev Pod on Twitter, and I am at Mechatodzilla, 1D, 2 L's, and look up Game Dev Breakdown Radio on Spotify. That's our weekend show where we will be doing sort of a weekly wrap-up, listen to some very good licensed music from Spotify's infinite library, and just talking about things as they come up. So that's it for me. Catch you guys this weekend. Still a little time to get something good done this week. And thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Congratulations on your Game Dev Breakdown, whatever that is. Sounds idiotic to me.